What has impacted Americans' lives, safety, and the wider economy more than anything in the past decade? It's not crime or immigration or artificial intelligence. It's not policies from the politicians you oppose or like, whoever they may be. You probably know the answer. It's the big thing that was so intense, tragic, and difficult, some people don't even talk about it anymore if they can help it. The COVID pandemic upended everything right when it arrived in 2020. It's caused over 1 million Americans' deaths, over 7 million worldwide. And it's so savage and exhausted everyone, it's almost odd how rarely we face it in detail nowadays. I mean, in our culture, our conversations, and in policy planning. A lot of people just say, well, we lived it. Well, what do you want me to do? What more do you want me to say? The pandemic also put doctors and science at center stage for a time in our society and showed our challenges at dealing with science and facts amidst fear and division. Many, as you probably remember, saw scientific leaders and Dr. Fauci at the helm as our leaders, or even possibly maybe our saviors in crisis. Others saw them as villains of this sprawling conspiracy.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's the country's top expert on infectious diseases.
Tony, your reputation is second to none.
Officials are quietly providing a list of Fauci's public comments and advice dating back several months to undermine his credibility.
In that same call, the president attacked Dr. Anthony Fauci, called him a disaster.
I got to say, you are a spry 83 years old. Have you thought about running for president?
No. Those are just some of the diverging views of Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease from 1984 to 2022, working across 7 different presidencies, every single one since Ronald Reagan. He helped lead the country's response to AIDS, SARS, Ebola, and the pandemic, as mentioned. He is our special guest tonight with the new book, On Call, A Doctor's Journey in Public Service. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Harry.
It's good to see you in person.
Same here.
We did that remote thing, which was safer in pandemic.
Yeah, many times.
Everyone has heard so much from you in the government and leadership context. Why did you want to now reflect on all that in the book?
Well, I've reached a certain stage when just reflecting back that I had a very unique opportunity, a special, I think, a privilege to have been in public service for more than half a century and to be the director of the Infectious Disease Institute for almost 40 years. And I thought I wanted to share that experience while I still had energy and passion about things, because I thought it's an important story from the perspective of someone who lived through it, as opposed to a historian who comes in from the outside. That was one reason to do the book. The other reason is I felt that it would serve, hopefully, as a source of inspiration for people who are either in public service and in public health, or younger people who might be considering a career, about how gratifying it can be despite all the challenges, which I describe in some detail in the book.
Yeah, and you also were up close in what we can all call an unusual and less consistent approach from President Trump.
Correct.
We have the Trump tapes now where Bob Woodward was also talking to him. Did you know at the time he was doing these side calls with Bob?
I did not know that, only after Bob's book came out.
And so you have these recordings that are contemporaneous. We all saw the briefings and the public stuff. But in private, you know, he's saying to Bob about it's flaring up everywhere, but we're going to control it immediately.
Right.
Take a listen to this, at the time, private discussion.
It's flaring up all over the world, by the way, all over the world. That was one thing I noticed last week. Yes. You know, they talk about this country. All over the world it's flaring up, but we have it under control.
Bob, who's seen as a very fair reporter and like you has dealt with many presidents, interestingly went farther than he has about most other presidents. He said this idea that they had it under control, it was not under control. It was intentionally never under control. It was a crisis and the president was not acting. Now that you're out of government, is that a fair criticism and assessment? Is it too harsh?
Well, no, I think it's fair because, as I said in the book, when I was talking about my interaction with him, I felt very uncomfortable when he was saying it was going to disappear like magic. It's just going to go away, because he so desperately wanted it to disappear the way flu disappears as you enter the end of the winter and the beginning of the spring. And that's when I had to publicly get up, which was very uncomfortable for me. I was not happy about criticizing the president or disagreeing with the president. I says, no, it's not going to disappear like magic at all. And when that became clear, that's when we started talking about hydroxychloroquine, which also was something that had no basis in science.
So in the book, you write, there was this example, that one, of the president's tendency to, quote, try to wish away COVID with solutions that had no basis. And then you talk about your complicated relationship with then President Trump, that he was irate. He'd say, you can't keep doing this, to him, like it was personal. Then he'd say, quote, he loved me, but the country was in trouble. I was making it worse. He added, the stock market went up only 600 points in response to the positive phase 1 vaccine news, and it should have gone up 1,000 points. And so I cost the country $1 trillion effing dollars. Was that different than any other president you've dealt with? And did it strike you, sorry, I had to ask, did it strike you as the wrong priority set when people were still dying?
Yeah, I mean, of course. And it was sort of like a whiplash where, in so many respects, he didn't want to be angry with me because we had, up to that point, a pretty good relationship. And that's when he would start saying things, you know, I care about you, I like you, I love you. But then he'd start screaming at me, which, you know, was kind of it's not fun being yelled at by the President of the United States. That was a bit unnerving, but I had to continue to tell the truth. And he said, why do you keep doing this to me? Because it's the truth. I'm telling the American public the facts. Hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. The part about that was when I said that we might need, when the vaccine comes out, it may not have a durable immunity. We may need to have a booster. He got very upset at that because he wanted the country to think that once the vaccine came out, that was it, one and done. And that's not what actually happened. So my prediction about that was correct, that we would need boosters. And he got very upset at that. So it was that kind of whiplash thing where we were getting along well, and then I would say something that he didn't like, and then all of a sudden I'd be the bad guy.
And that blunt fixation on selling a message or lying about it, his reelection, was that different and distinct from other presidents you dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was so obvious. It was a great deal of difference because, I mean, he again, I believe he wanted so badly for this to go away the way influenza goes away. And when he saw it was not going away, then he was hoping for some magical solution. And he even used those words, it's going to go away like magic. And then when that didn't work, then we had to have these miracle cures like hydroxychloroquine, which he got from Laura Ingraham on Fox News. And then after that, he would bring in somebody like Scott Atlas, who was telling him what he wanted to hear. It was tough.
Yeah, it's striking because for all the issues we talk about, as I mentioned in the lead, we're going towards an election here where we're choosing between these two people. And the pandemic is one of the most intense and high cost in lives crises you could ever have. And so Americans at the time rejected Trump for that and other reasons. And yet now you see them in a close race, and it's sort of striking. You also dealt with a lot of these figures. Peter Navarro, who's currently incarcerated for defying a government subpoena, you write, said, there you go again, Navarro shouted. I could tell by the look in his eye that he disliked me. You don't know what you're talking about. You guys have blood on your hands. He repeated, his voice raised. He assailed me for disagreeing with the travel ban from China in late January, which was not true. Did you think that Mr. Navarro had the requisite credentials to be a policymaker on these issues? Why did you guys have such disagreement? And what do you think of him now that he's in a federal prison?
Well, I don't want to comment about the federal prison, but I mean, he was just like a dog with a bone. He just kept on saying, you're wrong about hydroxychloroquine. In fact, as I describe in the book, he came into the Situation Room uninvited with a whole stack of papers, putting it on the table saying...
Can you do that? I thought the point of the Situation Room was not anyone can just walk in.
Well, he came in and said, these are the papers that say hydroxychloroquine works, and you have blood on your hands because you're saying you're keeping it for the American people, which actually even took the vice president aback and said, you know, Peter, I think you should take this outside. If you looked at Mark Short, who's a good guy, Mark looked at him like, what the heck are you doing here?
So the Vice President Pence basically thought, like a bouncer, like Peter Navarro, you should take it out.
Well, he told Peter, please take this outside. I mean, I give the vice president credit for doing that. That was just an interruption in a serious conversation.
I'm going to show something unusual for you and give you a second to process it because we have our shortest break.
Right.
But Jon Stewart, you were just with Colbert. Jon Stewart had come out of his sort of retirement to joke about something that also is serious, which is the origins of COVID and this idea that maybe folks underplayed or paid too little attention to the possibility that it came out of this Wuhan lab. I'm going to play this briefly, and you're staying with us. Take a look at Jon Stewart on this.
There's a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan Novel Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think?
That was 2021. I want to get your response to that. Where COVID came from seems to matter a lot. Obviously, we want to know. It matters for science and policy. And if it came from a foreign government's lab, that matters a ton. Again, there's a lot on this, but I want to read just here from a recent piece of coverage that notes the year before the outbreak, that same Wuhan Institute proposed creating viruses with this similar defining feature. The lab could not have contained an airborne virus as infectious as that, according to these researchers. And the hypothesis that this COVID came from an animal is no longer, says at least this researcher who reviewed a lot and wrote about this in the Times, Dr. Chan, supported by strong evidence. So first of all, question to you, based on what is known now, is it more likely than not that it came from that lab?
No. And I think that New York Times article was based on no science at all. If you talk to 100 virologists and read that article, there was no scientific basis for what she said. But let's put that aside for a moment. I'm very surprised the Times even let that opinion piece out.
I'll let you continue, but I'll just, since you're going at one thing, which is what people do, Wall Street Journal, Energy Department of the United States, as you know, Energy Department now says more likely than not lab leak, joining the FBI investigation that they feel it more likely spread via a mishap at that laboratory. I can give you other examples if you don't like the Times piece.
But let's just very, very quickly. First of all, we have to keep an open mind. We don't know where it could come from. It could have come from a lab. I have an open mind. It could have come from a natural occurrence. But 4 of the intelligence agencies believe it much more likely came from a natural occurrence.
And you believe, as of what you know now, that is more likely
well, let me
natural?
tell you what I believe. I believe you have to keep an open mind. The thing that gets mixed up in this, Ari, is that the NIH years ago funded a grant to do some surveillance for bat viruses, which was a grant that was appropriate because we knew that the original SARS came from a bat to a civet cat to a human. So the natural thing, it would have been almost irresponsible not to try and figure out what else was out there. The viruses that were studied under the NIH grant were evolutionarily so different from SARS that any evolutionary virologist worth their salt will tell you it could not possibly have come from those viruses because the precursor virus wasn't anything near evolutionary SARS. Having said that, put that to bed and say, could it have come from a lab in China? Absolutely. That's the reason why we keep an open mind. But if you look at what evolutionary virologists do and the data that looks at, is it a laboratory leak versus is it a natural occurrence from an animal reservoir? Overwhelmingly, the evolutionary virologists say it is more likely, not definitive, no proof, but more likely to come from a natural reservoir. What are the data to show that it came from a lab? I haven't seen that data. No one has seen it. That's the reason why I object to the New York Times editorial opinion piece, because there was no new data there. Again, underline, I keep an open mind. It could have been either.
Open mind, but your view is it's still more likely natural origin.
But that's my opinion based on the data.
Based on what you have.
But if somebody comes and gives you proof that it came somewhere from China, I will embrace that.
Did you notice that at times in the early stage, it seemed like the lab leak was being treated as a conspiracy theory or fringe? Is that fair to say?
No. See, you have to look at the concept broadly of it coming from the lab is not a conspiracy theory. The people who believe that made all kinds of conspiracies about it. One in particular, that somehow, like Jason Bourne, I snuck into the CIA and convinced them to say that it was not a lab leak. I mean, that is a bit of a crazy conspiracy.
And it's interesting. Right. We're dealing in facts as we do here, and it is tricky because there are many false conspiracy theories about this area. We make an effort not even to repeat those. I had Bill Gates on. He's been a subject to them as well. And yet there was also a very strong counterattack from some in the United States against discussing lab leak at all. Which, as you know, then feeds into that.
That was wrong. The concept of it being a lab leak, in and of itself, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's what people did to articulate that became a lot of conspiracies.
Yeah. In that related vein, you served your country and you served both parties, and we showed Trump initially saying good things about you and then other things.
Right.
You are like many other public servants, but you have a higher profile.
Right.
The fact that there is a need during and after your time in office to have security, the fact that these conspiracy theories and attacks are so extreme that Mr. Bannon and others who we've shown are talking about baselessly saying that you should be investigated or prosecuted or worse. Again, other things I'm not repeating.
No, he wants to be executed.
Executed.
Right.
Alex Jones talks about that.
Right.
Again, I'm careful of not giving too much voice to the worst case. What does that say about what's wrong with discourse and debate in this country? And what's your response to that?
Well, my response is that going back to what I said in the book, that I've done this for almost 40 years and I've dealt with Republican and Democratic Congresses and presidents, there's always been a diversity of ideological opinion. You know, middle left, middle right, far right.
Sure.
There has never been the degree of profound divisiveness that I've seen in all of my experience with other presidents, where you could have a situation where I got along well with President George H.W. Bush and President George W. Bush, in which we did the PEPFAR program together, which saved 25 billion lives, as I did with Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Joe Biden. So now all of a sudden we have a country that's so divided that when somebody disagrees with you, you have people like Bannon and Alex Jones saying, oh, kill him. I mean, what is that all about?
Yeah,
that's completely crazy.
It's wrong, and the risk is when some people take it seriously. So I did want to address that. We're running over on time, and closing is lightning round. This isn't a sentence.
Yes.
It might be hard for you. In one sentence.
One sentence.
I knew I'd made it when?
When we got the drugs that changed the lives of persons with HIV and brought a death sentence to essentially a normal life. When we, together with the pharmaceutical companies, got those drugs out.
I thought it was over when?
It was horrible early years in HIV, when I was literally working 18 hours a day and every one of my patients were dying. It was the most painful thing I've ever been through.
And given what you've done and what you've done in public service, reaching the summit means?
Reaching the summit means reaching a point where you can look back on your life and say, which I do now, I gave it 100% all the time, and I left it all out on the court. Let others judge the value of what I've done, but how I feel is when I can walk away from it and say, I left it all out there.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, great to see you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, a long conversation. And the book, again, On Call, A Doctor's Journey in Public Service. I've heard a lot of beatniks buy books and read books, and we encourage you to take a look at that book wherever you get your books.